What?
I'm just on my way over to Floodsalot, where I plan to establish a small forest for the purpose of coppicing. I want to see what trees are growing well in that area. I am then going to go over to my neighbours and I want to look at trees that he has established through cutting, mainly Sally and Willow, and see which of them are doing the best, which of them seem to be suited to the soil and the weather conditions. The fields where I plan to plant will flood during the winter and are generally very wet during that period, but they do dry out in the summertime. On the way over there, I want to check up on different wood piles I've established around the farm. What I want to do is establish a fungi-rich environment around the base of the trees. And there's two layers to that. On the surface layer, I want to establish a saprophyte fungi presence. A good way of doing that is to have wood chip or to have wood logs. And then below the ground, I want mycorrhizal, specifically endomycorrhizal, to create a symbiotic relationship with the roots. So they take the carbon from the roots and they bring the various nutrients that the tree needs. So let's have a look at some of the fungi on the root pile. What you can see here is the saprophyte fungi establishing on these logs. And what's very interesting to note is that it is primarily established on the tree trunks as opposed to the newer growth. So I've done some research into this. Why is this? Why are the tree trunks, why do they have so much saprophyte on them? And it looks like when the tree's growing, it gets a little bit of damage from time to time. That allows the fungi to establish inside the tree. And as the tree adds layers and grows, the fungi becomes embedded within the tree. So my initial observation then from establishing the logs around the farm is, if you want to get a good source of saprophyte fungi, then use the tree trunk as a primary source for that. It does establish eventually on all organic matter, and the role of the saprophyte fungi is to break down that organic matter and feed it down into the mineral layer, and then the next layer of microbiology gets to work on it there. I'm in Little Dog, and again you can see another example of the saprophyte fungi establishing itself on a tree trunk. It really seems to favour tree trunks. Is it simply as a result of the growth, or is it because there's more sap maybe in the branches? I don't know. So something I want to research, but the key point is, if you want a good source of saprophyte fungi, use tree trunks. I'm in Floodsalot, and this is the high water mark during the winter, typically when the flooding happens. And it's quite interesting. The first observation is that everything in that direction within the floodplain, it's primarily Sally, and it looks like a little bit of Willow as well. And just at the point of demarcation, there's a very big hazelnut tree, which has lots of nuts on it, which is good. I'm just walking over to my neighbour's farm now to get some tips on how you go about establishing Willow and Sally through cutting. So as I said, I plan to do that in January of 2021. I'd like to introduce my neighbour, Jonty Walker.
Hello.
Jonty is going to give me a demonstration of how to make cuttings and how you establish them, and then afterwards we'll look at some previous cuttings that I've established and see how well they're doing.
You've got lots of small branches. You just take them like that and then stick them in where you want.
What about thickness of branches? Thicker, better, thinner? What do you recommend?
It doesn't seem to make an awful lot of difference. I tend to use small ones like that because I use the wood for the willow for wood as well. So whenever I strip branches, I'll stick a certain number of those in any time of the year. But the best time to do this is certainly late winter, or is early spring, say February, because all these behind were done when I cut down a tree in February the year before last, and they all thrived.
And what about foliage? Do you leave the foliage on when you're putting it in the ground? You know, does it cause stress, or is it good to get some photosynthesis, or have you seen any difference, or have you tried out different techniques?
I just leave it as it is. I don't know that it makes any difference, but certainly if you're doing it in February, the foliage seems to last. If it takes, the foliage will stay alive, so it's probably worth leaving it on. It's also a good indicator of how healthy it is.
If it stays on?
Yes.
And do the leaves normally stay on then when you leave them on?
Yes, yeah. There's some that are established up there, but that's stuff I put in 14 years ago.
So we'll have a look up there.
Yeah.
So Jonty, talk me through what happened here. When did these, what is it, Sally? Willow?
Yeah.
Sally? Willow?
Yeah, several types. I can't give you the names because there's quite a lot of types of willow, but it's essentially a form of white willow, and some of them also a form of bay, but those aren't the proper names for them. That's the shape of the leaf.
And did they all do as well?
Yes, all this. There was no willows when I came first here, and in the first few years when I was cutting wood for the fire, I'd just stick the old sticks in here. And as you can see, 14, 15 years later, you could mature willow here.
Yeah, they're doing well.
Yeah.
And you've been coppicing this, have you? Or has it just been falling over?
The only coppicing I've done on these ones is there's been a couple of them have fallen over, and I just cut a few branches off and they stand up again.
That's interesting. I noticed with the slash hook it left a very rough cut as opposed to a saw or shears that'd be quite a clean cut. Do you think there's any difference?
No, though it can be easier. I tend to like a straight across cut because it's easier to stick it in.
Oh, for rough end it can spread out more?
Yes, yeah.
I wonder, does that help with the establishment of the roots though? Or not?
I don't know whether it would.
So are you okay if I take a few cuttings in January then to get some willow going?
You can take more than a few.
So look at
and you'll probably have some in the hedges down there.
I think there is
well.
some on the Marin hedge.
Yes.
I'm not 100% sure of all the different varieties, but the leaf, I tend to associate willow with a long thin leaf.
Yes.
Whereas the Sally tends to have a fatter bulbous.
Yes,
fatter
yeah,
end
like
on
a
it.
bay leaf. Yeah,
like a bay leaf.
Yeah.
So I think there might be enough in the hedgerows, but I don't see these varieties in my hedgerows, so I might try some of these as well.
I think there was only one or two of these to begin with that I had.
Yeah.
And they're easy to cut and coppice, so there's more of them now.
Good. So come here. You've got some young pups. Shall we go up and have a look at them?
Yeah, yeah. 8 of them.
What is the puppies, Jonty?
They're 6 days old now.
Are their eyes open yet?
No. Apparently their eyes aren't open until 9 or 10 days. I thought it was earlier, but it's a long time, so I can't remember.
So it looks like the red setter must be regressive, because there's definitely a lot of black and brown Labrador in there.
Yes, and Marley's mother was a black Labrador, his father was a golden.
So the plan is, I'm going to establish a small forest of Sally and Willow in this field, which is the bottom part of Floodsalot, and the bottom part of Little Dog behind me, the other side of the hedge. So I have to work out what is the planting density, etc. So if you do have a view on that, please tell me in the comments. But I have to work that out, and then come January this year, I will take cuttings from local trees and I will just pop them into the ground. We'll see how well that plays out. If you're interested in regenerative agriculture, organic farming, If you want to follow this story from planting through to production of an organic hazelnut orchard and coppicing forest, which will be used to feed the hazelnut trees, click on that subscribe button and I will be recording each step on that journey. I'll be recording lessons learned, knowledge gained. And if you're on Twitter, for example, you'll see that I'm trying to engage with those involved in the regenerative agricultural scene. I'm trying to engage academia, I'm trying to engage farmers who have probably a better systems view of organic farming. And I'm learning, I'm studying, I'm trying to work out what system is going to work best for me to create a good outcome for my hazelnut trees. So click on that like button. You can find me on Twitter by searching for Gub Farm. I've got a similar conversation going on in different groups on Facebook, so you can find me there. Again, just search for Gub Farm. So until next time, good luck!